still waiting to click yes, no, but I'll be asked to lunch.
All right, okay, no problem.
Tēnā tātou katoa, nā mai haere mai. Welcome everybody to Session 6 of the Long-Term Plan 2021-2031 submissions hearings. Before we get underway, I'm Pat Hancock, I'm a City Councillor and will chair this evening's session. So the first thing we need to do is just do some formalities, and that's around the housekeeping and safety procedures. In the event of a fire or emergency, on hearing the alarm, please leave the site immediately by the nearest fire exit. Evacuate to the assembly area, the clock tower, which is Te Marae Auhine, the square. This is a no smoking facility, so smoking is prohibited. There's a defibrillator on the located at the front of house on the ground floor, along with first aid. Please report any near misses or incidents to the committee administrator, the folk on my right here. So the meeting is being recorded and will be on the Council's website. The meeting is also being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. Elected members and the public can watch live or watch later. So I have got some apologies. And the apologies, the committee resolved that the apologies be received from the Mayor Grant Smith and Councillors Alicia Rutherford, Rachel Bowen and Renee Dingwall, all absent on council business, Councillor Zolfika Butt for lateness, and Councillor Orphy Michelad. Are there any other apologies? I'll move those. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Johnson. And we'll take a vote, please. Councillors, can you just check to make sure that your vote's been recorded? Thank you, Councillor Finlay. That's passed 10 votes for and none against. Do I have any additional items, councillors? Any declarations of interest for this evening's session? And we have a resolution to note the procedure sheet. That the committee resolved to note the procedure for hearings of submissions as described in the procedure sheet, which are on the table over there and were also sent out with all the submitters. So I'm happy to move that. If somebody can second that, thank you, Councillor Harpiter. And we'll take a vote, please. And that's passed 10 votes for, none against. So for the submitters' benefit, when you're called forward, just come up to the submitters' table. There is a microphone there. Just press the button so that the green light comes on. You'll have 10 minutes to make your submission. We have the traffic light system here just in front of staff. 7 minutes on the green, another 2 minutes on the orange, and then you've got 1 minute left when it turns red. If you wish to have conversations or take questions from the city councillors, can you please just make sure that you leave some space at the end of 10 minutes, and we will stick very much to the 10-minute time limit. So without further ado, the first submitters for this evening is Dale O'Reilly and Peter Gore.
Mr. Chair, could I just ask you to bring the microphone a bit closer because you're very quiet. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, just when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to our submission. We live in Bunnythorpe and farm 65 acres, most of which is within the Kiwi Rail Freight Hub footprint. Our farm has been in the Gore family since Peter's great-grandfather cleared and farmed it back in the 1890s. We will be left with a house and roughly 5 acres. We implore you all to be vigilant and make yourselves knowledgeable about what is being proposed on your watch. As you will have read in our submission, information about what is being planned between your organisation, Horizons, Kiwi Rail and NZTA is lacking. See also submission number 25 and submission number 395, paragraph 20, who both share this concern. This is also borne out by the fact that of those more detailed submissions, the question, what do you think of our ideas for strategic transport, has largely been left blank. Submitters who did fill in this question have answered that getting trucks out of residential streets is a great idea. Submitters 20 and 24 are examples. They don't seem to understand that these trucks will just be going through another residential area under your current planning. As described in submission 25, this lack of information may well go against the LGA's consultation requirements. It is vital that you, our councillors, understand what you will be ultimately responsible for, that being the devastation of a quiet, long-standing, growing rural settlement. We wholeheartedly support Dr. Aaron Fox's presentation to you on Tuesday of this week regarding the imposition on the growing settlement of Bunnythorpe of the Kiwi Rail Freight Hub and the Rural Freight Ring Road projects. Dr. Fox spoke about you all being representative of not only a city but also rural settlements within your territorial authority. When considering the planning for Bunnythorpe, there are numerous contradictions in terms of protecting communities. One thing that we would hope has stuck in your minds from Dr. Fox's presentation is the seemingly accepted notion that Bunnythorpe residents will just have to leave if they don't like the pollution, vibration and noise, etc. Let us quote what Dr. Fox was alluding to from Kiwi Rail's answers to Palmerston North City Council's questions of their social impact assessment. The Palmerston North City Council question, with 24 houses being acquired and changes to the population of Bunnythorpe likely, people relocating elsewhere and construction workforce potentially moving in, it is appropriate to consider how these changes may impact on existing community connections and how community cohesion may be altered at the various stages of development. The Kiwi Rail answer. This recognises that the community within the designation extent, which largely consists of rural residential homeowners, will be replaced by industrial workforce. It goes on to say, it may have some impact on community cohesion. In particular, the demographic profile of the area indicates that residents are typically settled, they move less frequently, which means that the displacement of households as a result of the freight hub may result in established families moving, or families moving who had planned to be part of the community for a long time. And then following another question from Palmerston North City Council, which was, please provide more information on the rationale for selecting the local impact area and details on mesh block and census data that has been used to construct the local impact area profile. The answer is, GIS analysis has been undertaken since the social impact analysis was prepared, which enables a better understanding of the total population within the local impact area. This estimates a total of 431 houses, which equates to approximately 1,265 residents. Now, if you are really prepared to allow this to continue to, to allow this continue to be in your planning? A rail hub site that has the highest degree of engineering difficulty and therefore cost of all of the 9 sites assessed, and state highways going through a quiet, long-established rural settlement community. We have tried to keep this short in order to answer questions we hope you have after reading our written submission, and to that end we would first like to answer to Councillor Johnson's question of Dr Fox on Tuesday, and the scoffing of some councillors around the table when he answered. Yes, we always have a contingent of councillors and council staff, and even the mayor on occasion, at our community meetings. And it may be, as the scoffer suggested, that we have the highest turnout of any community. However, after 9 years of meetings, we continue to have residents miss out on pamphlets and information. We continue to have raw sewage spill over people's sections and under their houses in rain events. And the 2010 study for a regional freight ring road, the Bunnythorpe portion of which we have been opposing ever since, is still planned to go through our village, which has never had a state highway anywhere near. We now have the Kiwi Rail Freight Hub, eagerly encouraged by Palmerston North City Council, planned to go within our geographical boundary and was extended so that it can incorporate a portion of the regional freight ring road. How convenient. Then, at the recent meeting where Palmerston North City Council presented the draft 10-year plan, we were told we would receive a document that has a road planning map, which was shown on a PowerPoint presentation. We didn't. When we pursue information or bring up issues at our community committee meetings, we are told by council representatives that we need to bring them to these planning processes. So we do, only to be greeted with feedback in which it is insinuated that we should not bring issues to this forum because we get the highest turnout of council representatives to our community committee meetings of any community. The underlying message being that we need to bring these up at our community committee meetings. Furthermore, our efforts at these meetings over the last 10 years to inform our community about what is being planned for Bunnythorpe have been downplayed and even dismissed by council representatives, resulting in ridicule and even some hostility. This was highlighted by one of the small number of residents who attended that last meeting who, once the road planning map was visible on the PowerPoint presentation, commented along the lines of, "We moved here about 2012, and for this entire time we have all been led to disregard the mad woman who goes on about the roading, Dale, when you are now saying that everything she has been telling us over the years is true." On a personal note, what a blessing it has been that this was given ear. It certainly now puts into perspective some family and community interactions I've had over the years, and I'm really grateful. Here I would like you to acknowledge my family. It can't be easy being related to, or worse, growing up with, within a community where your mother or auntie or sister or partner has been labelled mad for all of these years. If trying to inform and encourage people to protect the community we live in is the measure of madness, then I truly hope that we are sharing the room today with a lot of mad people. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dale. Peter, have you got anything that you want to add? Right, do we have any questions for our submitters? Thank you very much for your submission. It'll be considered by council in due course. Thank you. Sorry, the next submitter is Manawatu Kiwi Polo, Teresa Alcock. Thank you, Teresa. You're quite happy with the traffic light system? Yes. Okay, thank you. So when you're ready.
I support the post-financial programme number 1899.
Sorry, can we check the microphone there?
Oh, sorry, I thought it was already on. you want me to start again? Did you all pick up that first bit? Do I have to repeat it? Repeat it or not repeat it? Repeat it, okay. I support the proposed financial programme number 1899, the Aquatic Facilities and Water Recreation Preliminary Feasibility Study, to be included in the 10-year plan. My role at Canoe Polo is I am C and D grade coordinator in the Manawatu QE Canoe Polo Club. I'm also the coordinator of Manawatu High School League that is run through terms 2 and 3, and I'm one of the coaches at Fielding High School. I play canoe polo myself, and I compete locally and nationally. Currently, we have 29 high school teams entered in our local high school league. That's about 200 high school players. That's more teams than we've ever had before. Last year, we had 24 teams, and this was an increase on the previous year. There's no doubt that our sport is growing, and we are struggling to provide a competition that is suitable for our high school players. So we run the competition across 3 divisions, and we go right from beginners, total beginners, up to our Division 1 players, a number of which are actually trying out for NZ under-18 teams. So we've got that huge range that we cater for. We run the competition on 2 nights a week at 2 different pools. We use Freiburg Pool on a Monday night from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock for our 9 Division 1 teams. And we run Division 2 and 3 on a Tuesday evening from 7 till 9:30 at Freiburg Pool and from 8 till 9:30 at Marquino Pool. We cannot start any earlier because we cannot get the pool space. Our players in the last game of the evening don't get off the water until 9:30. They then need to pack away their gear, and they don't typically get home until gone 10 o'clock. It's less than ideal. So if we had a purpose-built 50-metre indoor facility, we could potentially, that was 10 lanes wide, not just 5 like the Lido is, we could run 2 small court games simultaneously for our Division 2 and 3 teams, thereby halving the time needed. It would also give our Division 1 players the opportunity to play on a full-size court that they're unable to do in the winter at all at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, a significant number of these players are training to make the leap into either A-grade canoe polo, or they are trialling for the New Zealand under-18 teams this year. They are significantly disadvantaged playing on a small court over winter. The training, in addition to this, I'd just like to mention as well, the training camps for the New Zealand trials are being held in Hawke's Bay on their purpose-built 4-court facility. 2 years ago, those camps were held here in Palmerston North, as were the high school national championships. They've now moved to Hawke's Bay too. So I therefore support the building of an outdoor facility here in the Manawatu that would cater to a range of aquatic sports, including canoe polo, that would bring those big competitions and those big training camps back to this region. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Do we have any questions for Teresa? Councillor Barrett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Teresa. Just wanted to understand your point, I guess, finally, that you made there around if we build it, they will return. So that's because of where the geographic center of the players is. I guess what I'm trying to establish is that we haven't simply lost the center of gravity to the Hawke's Bay.
It's shifted there because they've recently built their new facility, so they have it already set up. And it always used to be here at the Hokiwhiru Lagoon, so we used to have everything here. Hawke's Bay and the Manawatu are the 2 biggest clubs in the country. So I'm guessing if we had something similar or better than they had, then it would be they have one camp, we'd have the other camp, they'd have the next one, we'd have this one, and we would share it between us. Of course, if we had something bigger and better than it were, if it came to international competitions or big national competitions, then we would outbid them in terms of what we could provide.
Right, and so your basic submission is to something that would at least achieve parity with what they've got.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Chair.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your submission. Just wanted to clarify one of your last points you made, an outdoor facility. And earlier today we had water polo saying that outdoor uncovered could be quite a chilling experience and unkind. So for the multi-use and benefit, would not an indoor facility?
Oh, an indoor facility would be amazing, but I'm talking about, the indoor facility, the 50-metre pool would be one 50-metre pool. I'm talking about multiple courts, which would then be, I guess, cost prohibitive to have it covered.
Sure.
So then you're looking at things like kayaking, outdoor swimming, triathlon, those kind of things. In the summer, I guess it would be open to a lot more sports.
Yeah. Okay, and I just did some research last night through the submissions. They got in Hawke's Bay, the new facility, an Olympic pool, $32 million from Shovel Ready, and they had raised $19 million. Have you got an idea of the costs of some of the other facilities that would need to look at to get something purpose-built? At the moment, the conversation's been void of a dollar figure.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we could just go. I would just go to Hawke's Bay and say, how much did it cost you guys? And like you say, do that research. But I'm not the treasurer. We do have the treasurer over here. But I think our chairman has also done more work into looking at how much these things would cost. But I don't have those figures. I'm sorry.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hapeta.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Teresa. Just wanted to clarify your point around 10-lane pool. Just wanted to understand why it was 10 lanes.
Why? Because if you've got a 10-lane pool, it's 25 metres across. So then you've actually got two 25-metre pools side by side. So you can split it into two 25-metre pools, or you can run it as a 50-metre pool. Now, a canoe polo court is actually 23 metres wide. So when we go down to Wellington, for instance, and they've got a 10-lane pool that's 50 metres long, we have a metre each side for getting on and off the water, and then we play in the 23 metres that's in the middle. So they've got that, and then they've got, in addition to that, another 25-metre pool on the end that they keep their lane swimming going the whole time that we have the tournaments on the big area.
The Kilburnie pool?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. That ends the questions. Thank you very much for your submission, and that will be considered by Council in due course. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Right, our next submitter is Sport Marawa 2, Trevor Shaler. You're very familiar with the submissions in the council chamber, so no instructions needed. Thank you. When you're ready.
Kia ora tātou, tēnei ngā mihi kia tātou katoa, kua tātou mai nei tēnei wā, no reira mihi atu kia koutou, tēnei whetū ki te rangi, ko rangi tānei nui a rangi ki te whenua, no reira tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou katoa. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm going to take our submission as read because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to get through the 12 pages of our submission, but we've pretty much commented on most of the parts in relation to play, active rec and sport. But what I will do is just highlight a couple of areas for you and hopefully leave some time for questions. I'd also like to introduce Nathan Hopcroft, who is the Deputy Chair of our board. So it's great to have Nathan here at his first LTP submission. So firstly, I thought I'd start with just talking about the fact that Palmerston North, along with the wider region, has a rich history in delivering recreation and physical activity opportunities and sporting success. So much so that I could be at the hockey right now in the VIP tent, but it's great to be here today to have this opportunity this evening to talk about the submission. And unfortunately, I believe the men's team lost 3-1. So sorry about that. But I'm sure we've got lots of supporters there encouraging them on for the women's game coming up shortly. But what I want to say is that the council, we acknowledge the Palmerston City Council's decisions are underpinned by the various plans and policies which are developed to enable effective decision-making. Obviously, the innovative and growing city, creative and exciting city, a connected and safe community, an eco-city, and a driven and enabling council. So we believe play, active rec and sport should play an integral role in the lives of residents from the city. And we also recognise the challenges that council have facing the city in terms of wanting to achieve the outcomes in the above-mentioned plans. So before I go into further detail, I'm going to throw Nathan in the deep end and get Nathan to talk a little bit about our strategic plan, because I think it's really important to look at the alignment that we have as a partner with council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we went back to basics with our strategic plan, like a lot of organisations did once we were faced with the effects of COVID-19. We also had some changes on our board, so it was a good chance to align us all and the team as well, and really go back to basics with our strategic plan. So the 4 strategic priorities that we identified were opportunities to participate, and what was important with us too is each one had a success statement. So success statement was communities live more active lives through play, active recreation and sport. Another priority, regional leadership. Success looks like a strong and capable sector that delivers a diverse range of quality play, active recreation and sport experiences for our communities. Third one was strong foundations. Sport Manawatu people are valued, skilled and committed to the kaupapa. We commit to a journey of continuous reflection and adaptation to improve the health and wellbeing of us all. Fourth one was partnerships and collaboration. Success is a strong and diverse range of partnerships and collaborations adding value across our sector organisations. So we feel it reflects the diverse relationships that we hold and also diverse programs, etc., that we run as well with a number of important stakeholders, including the city. We welcome feedback officially from the city or else directly through our website where there's opportunity to place feedback on the plan or through email to Sport Manawatu as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. Again, we've provided that plan for council to provide some feedback on. So if we cut straight to the 10-year plan and the LTP, in general terms, we're supportive of the overall 10-year plan. We've made comments on each of the different sections, so I do want to leave some time for questions because it'll be easier for me to talk through some of the questions and go through each one that we support. So in the greater scheme of things, we're very supportive of the plan. I do want to briefly mention around the Active Communities Plan. I think it's really important that there's a blueprint to ensure we have a united plan for play, active rec and sport, that it recognises and builds on the positive momentum of the existing partnerships in place. Also in relation to the Community Active Communities Fund, again, I think we're really keen to ensure that that fund continues. The opportunity to reduce barriers for participation is really, really important. We've been able to support with the resourcing that we've had through the fund, some 200 community members with that fund. So again, it's really important in this time at the moment to look at how we might reduce some of those barriers. Lots of the other discussions already around the aquatic facilities, around Central Energy Trust Arena, and a lot of the presentations you've had already from sport, which is great to see that our sports are engaged in this process, which is great. But we are in a really challenging time at the moment with competing priorities. That never changes. But also the environment's changed quite significantly around how young people and adults are participating in physical activity. So it's incumbent on us to make sure that we've got a range of facilities and opportunities that enables the most impact. So what I'm saying here is I want to acknowledge the work that council have done around adopting the regional sport facility plan. and the decision-making within that plan, because that plan is really important to help provide a really clear process around how we make decisions. So you'll see in our submission, we're talking about needs assessment, and in your plan, working alongside the council officers, the notion around the feasibility studies, the needs assessments, those are all vital for good decision-making. So again, I would encourage, and I'd also thank the council for their ongoing support in relation to the facility plan. That's only been developed since 2018. We're due to review that plan, but council have been a big supporter of the implementation of that plan itself. The other things I will suggest, just to touch on two more things, the covered bowling green assessment. So again, I think everybody's focused on young people, and I think that's appropriate, but I think it's with this particular opportunity around the bowling green, around our recommendation is to encourage council to reconsider their view around investment and support the timing of that in terms of the feasibility study. I think bowls have done a really tough job at looking at amalgamating. They've done some of the heavy lifting, and I think there's an opportunity to look at how we continue to support that, because more and more of that is going to happen with amalgamations, and we need to be able to have some really good case studies to show that this is actually part of the change that needs to happen. So that's what I would put to you and encourage you to think about. The last thing I'll touch on strategically, and it's orange, is really around the Sport Event Partnership Fund. So there's some key challenges in there for us around the fund. It's done a great job. We've got the black sticks here at the moment. The economic benefit for the city is fantastic, but we're at a state where we've got to start thinking about how we prioritise decisions around who we fund. And I think that's an important part. So we're asking to work alongside council around how we prioritise that fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trevor. We've got some questions in the queue there, and the first one is Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, and thanks, Trevor and Nathan. Just going to page 6 of your submission, and particularly the wording around your thoughts around the Central Energy Trust Arena Southern Grandstand. Given that what I'm sort of reading between the lines there is that perhaps bringing that forward wouldn't fit. Or tell me if I'm understanding this correctly, but perhaps the timing of bringing it forward wouldn't necessarily align with what would be evidence-based around if the framework is applied. Is that correct?
What we're saying is that following the decision-making process, looking at the feasibility and the needs assessment is an important part of the overall picture, and because it's not just about the infrastructure itself, it's also looking at making sure that there's a clear case for the proposal, that there's clear economic case, which is looking at the options analysis. So I think that's the part where would relate to the timing, because what we're saying is if you're investing in the grandstand, then you need to look at the opportunities that are lost. Exactly. In terms of that. So there needs to be some thinking done around that, but also how you fund it, also how the facility will be sustainable, but also the ongoing challenges around governance and the operational cost, because that's often part of the challenge on an ongoing basis.
So can I just, try and get some clear direction? So what we've got in the plan at the moment, do you feel that the timing is wrong, the fact that it's been brought forward?
That's a good question. Again, I'm not going to say whether or not it's about the timing. What I'm going to say is it's making sure that there's the I's are dotted and T's are crossed around the needs assessment. And within the needs assessment, then that should be able to provide a better indication around whether or not this option should be brought forward or where it is currently. Okay,
just one further quick question.
We're actually out of time.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll talk later, perhaps.
Yep, thank you very much, Trevor and Nathan, and your submission will be considered in due course by council. And Nathan, welcome to the fray. Cheers.
Great. Thank you very much.
Right, our next submitter is Manawatu Tenants Union, Ben Schmidt. Good, Ben. And you've submitted here before, and you're quite au fait
Yes.
with the system, so when you're ready, you can start. Thank you.
Awesome. So kia ora koutou, thank you for giving us this opportunity to submit. Assuming you've all read through the submission, from our perspective, the housing crisis is still with us. We are not seeing that get better anytime soon. We still have too many tenants, too many whānau, individuals who are in substandard, insecure situations, whether that is emergency or transitional housing, in cars and overcrowding. And housing is really such a central part of our lives. It impacts our health, physically and mentally. When tenants cannot put down their roots into a community, stay in a place for a long time, get involved with the local sports, the local church, the local community, they are not able to contribute towards a connected community, a safer community, or a creative and exciting city that we all want to see this place to be. So for us, housing is the basic need, the basic right that really underpins a lot of the council's goals. And so for that reason, it needs to continue to be at the foremost. The council is doing really well, and we want to congratulate you on that, from maintaining and developing more social housing, funding initiatives around housing, funding the Eco-Advisor service. These are all excellent things in which we lead the way around a lot of the country. But we can't get complacent. We need to continue building more social housing and keep that reputation as a leading social housing landlord. And I think a part of that, as we're seeing more and more housing, more social housing developments around the city, will be that the council doesn't just look at the bricks and the mortar of building more houses, but how are those tenants a part of a community? How are they supported to be a part of a thriving community around them, where they can be safe, where they can be connected? And that is an area where the council has potential to do more in leading as a good social landlord. And also continue to fund those crucial public services and community services that are the lifeblood, really, of our community. Happy to take any questions from here. The one thing I want to say before that is council housing tenants should not have to pay more than 25% of their income as rent. We want to see it stay that way. We want to see it be consistent. Not some on 30, some on 25. Everyone should be on the same level. These are not people who are easy. If you're on the pension, if you're on the supported living payment, the less rent, the better. It's about having a decent life so you can be a part of your community, and we hope to see the council change that to 25% across the board and maintain that. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Ben. And we have got a couple of questions here. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Ben. You referred to a couple thousand contacts in the year.
Yes.
So when you look objectively at that sort of, I guess, the information that you get through those contacts, do we need some form of rent control?
Yes, we do, and that's something we've advocated strongly for. However, unfortunately, that is a national government issue that, from our understanding, local government has limited control over. We would encourage you to support those calls when you're dealing with the national government, but I wouldn't want us to get off topic.
And a further brief question, if I might.
Certainly.
Just around the 25%, appreciate that your submission actually had some actual references behind it. But I was trying to understand sort of where that number came from and why, for instance, it isn't 20 or 30.
Absolutely. So at the moment, we understand that some council tenants' rent is set at 30% of their income, some is at 25%. We would prefer that to see the lower and for that to be consistent. 25% is the proportion of income paid by Kainga Ora Housing New Zealand tenants, by community housing provider tenants, transitional housing residents, so it makes it consistent with social and public housing arrangements across the city and the country. A lot of the international research shows that 25% of income is really the upper limit of what may be considered affordable.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ben, for your submission. point 22, you talk about needing to consider emergency housing, transitional housing and insecure housed residents in community and housing strategies. So are you feeling that they're not adequately considered in the current strategies? Do we need to make some changes? Or are you just supporting what's there?
I'd have a few things to say on that. Firstly, we see that as a need. In particular, we are supporting the submission and the comments of the Housing Advice Centre, who did raise this and who have probably spoken to that in more detail. For a lot of people living in emergency housing, you don't have a proper kitchen. You might be cramped up in a small room area with you and your kids. So having places to play, to participate in your community is crucial. And I would like to see more done in that area. We wouldn't want to see any cuts. And I think when the council is setting those strategies, there needs to be a consideration of equity in terms of, if you're doing an initiative, how will this be accessible? How will it benefit people who are in these more vulnerable and precarious situations?
Okay, there was a suggestion from Housing Advice that council look at providing or enabling, if we didn't provide it ourselves, night shelter accommodation. Do you have a view about that?
Certainly. So we work with people who are homeless, not as much as the Housing Advice Centre, but we do. So that has been really tossed back and forth around the city over the last few decades, from my understanding. I believe from what we see, it would be used, and that could be very beneficial. We recognise that the Housing Advice Centre work more closely in this area than we do, so we support the recommendation for that reason. At a bare minimum, it is something that the council needs to investigate and look into so they can better understand what is the situation, get some good data behind that, and then look at what can be done.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr Chair.
Councillor Finlay.
Thank you, Ben. A couple of questions. First one is along the same lines as Councillor Johnston. In an emergency housing or night shelter, you know the situation in the city, and you're out there at night on Saturday nights as well. How many people do you think, and as a guesstimate, would be living rough on the streets?
I'm not comfortable making an estimate on that. So what I can say is that at MTU, over the last year, we worked with about 50 or 60 people who were homeless. The Housing Advice Centre, people on a regular basis, myself, I would estimate that would certainly, I would say, likely to be more than 5 or 10, but again, we do not have hard and consistent data there, so I wouldn't want to make any concrete assumptions.
And the second question is, with the government changing the conditions for landlords, that they've got to have heating and insulation, etc., are you still getting many numbers of clients coming in with houses that don't meet that standard?
Absolutely, that is still one of the main issues we continue to see. Tenants are not in an equal relationship with their landlords. No matter what the law is, there's still a long way to go. We often work with tenants whose landlords aren't even meeting the 1947 housing improvement regulations. So I think that speaks for itself. It is a huge issue. It's not just about meeting the 2018 standards, it's about meeting what's been there since after the Second World War.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ben. That ends all the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your submission, and it'll be submitted with the other submissions for consideration in due course. Right, our next submitters is Musica Viva Committee, Virginia Swabrick.
Kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Virginia Warbrick. I'm the current president of Musica Viva. I'm a soprano with an interest in early music and contemporary bicultural New Zealand music. I'm joined by immediate past president Guy Donaldson, pianist, music educator, and community music facilitator. Thank you for this time to speak to our submission. Musica Viva involves performers and lovers of folk, jazz, classical, bicultural, musical theatre, early music, and New Zealand music. Our membership links significantly with secondary school music departments, registered and itinerant music teachers, choirs, the Manawatu Symphonia, Manawatu Youth Orchestra, Chamber Music New Zealand, and the Globe Concert Series. We're speaking informally on behalf of our local concert music sector. We acknowledge the submissions made by the Stomach addressing public music and Tania Kapitko's insights on performing arts. As Tania has noted, participation in the performing arts likely significantly outnumbers participants of other art forms. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of us. We practice our performance arts in well-organised groups and organisations, some with deep histories and long service to the community. So when Council says it works with or partners with arts organisations, please include and involve us.
The arts plan states it's difficult to find out what's on. The issue of communications is therefore central to our submission. Through the local branch of the New Zealand Choral Federation, I run an informal coming events register for concert music events in the Manawatu-Whanganui region. And this is an important reference point for arts administrators of concert organisations such as choirs and Musica Viva. And I'm willing to share this register with Council to help with making it easier to find out what's on. A second aspect of communication is that from arts organisations to the community itself. Our audiences tell us that they rely on print media and word of mouth. Often we are told that they have not known that musical events have been taking place. The Manawatu Standards function as a community newspaper and its circulation has declined over recent decades. With the demise of the Tribune, the Guardian newspaper has stepped up, but activities of the arts sector are not adequately reaching people. One reason seems to be that there are not enough staff to deliver the Guardian to all letterboxes in the city. Could Council then work with the Guardian to establish newspaper stands in public spaces such as supermarkets for community benefit? Could Council sponsor a regular coming events promotion in the Guardian? Could Council consider different ways for arts organisations to reach the community, such as quick turnaround funding for arts marketing? Musica Viva's base is Square Edge, where our grand piano is located. Square Edge is a vital hub of music activity for Musica Viva, the Manawatu Symphonia, the Manawatu Youth Orchestra and training orchestras, and for music examinations and concerts run by the Registered Music Teachers Association. A number of outstanding careers in music have had Musica Viva and its location in Square Edge as their foundation. These include violinist Matthew Ross, local choral directors Graham Young and Nigel Tongs, pianist and orchestral conductor Andrew Atkins, and international opera singers Annalise and Hadley Adams. We urge Council to make it a priority to strengthen Square Edge and other at-risk Council buildings. We would also encourage Council to proactively maintain its buildings in the city. Other Council buildings which are vital to concert music include the Regent on Broadway. Thanks to the work of Denise Savanti and presently that of Jerry Keating and the Steinway Piano, the Globe Theatre is now a significant part of the interface between the performing sector and audiences of a wide range of music tastes, including that of the concert music sector, particularly through the monthly Globe Sunday matinee series which I run. The concert music sector also uses the Spears Centre and has the support from churches used as venues, including St Peter's, Central Baptist, and the Cathedral of the Holy Spirit. We await the completion of earthquake strengthening and renovations of St Andrews. Not so fortunate has been All Saints, whose future, despite housing a very fine concert pipe organ, is at present in the balance.
In the arts plan, there seems to be a heavy focus on visual art, sculpture and murals, toi Māori and CCOs. Music has a very limited presence in the plan. Music plays a key role in forming identity and can tell a story of a city. We strongly encourage Council to consider including a music strand or focus in the arts plan. In recent years, Auckland Council has strategically cooperated with key music organisations to become a city of music, a member of the UNESCO Creative City Network. And there are existing strategic documents and roadmaps that Council could consider, such as the Auckland Music Strategy and Music Canada's The Mastering of a Music City. Palmerston North has a wonderful ecosystem of musicians and specialists across all ages, cultures and genres. By Palmerston North identifying as a music city and developing plans to make music more embedded, connected and visible, we will see social, cultural, economic, artistic, well-being, touristic and transformational benefits for our community. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Virginia. Councillors, do we have any questions for Virginia or Guy? Sorry, they've just come through now. So, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if it had taken or not. Thanks, Virginia and Guy, for your submission. As well as the sort of words that we put in the arts plan, are there actions that you think are missing from the sort of programmes? And so, in other words, you've talked about how you think we should describe, you know, the role of music in art, but what about the sort of action side of it? Does there need to be work there as well, or what's your feel?
I suppose what we're suggesting is quite a big picture idea, and perhaps this is not specifically for this 3-year round, but perhaps in 3 years' time the council would have done work towards using these sorts of thinking to be able to put some things in place into the arts plan next time round. So I guess our request is, can council please do some work towards what that might look like for our community? So yeah, I think it's probably quite big picture and we don't have specific things that we're requesting council to do in the plan itself.
Although I would like to add also that following up on the statement that the council cannot be clear about what happens in the sector, that I would like to see the council be more proactive in availing itself of the opportunities to know the scope of the sector. And that's what I'm indicating, that there is a body of knowledge out there which it can avail itself of.
So I would say on that point, that's definitely has been stated in plans for at least the last 10 years, that the communication between art sector groups and then to the community has been an ongoing issue. Yes,
I think the statement, my understanding of that statement is that the community sometimes finds it hard to know what's on, not that the council doesn't know what's on.
And that, thank you, is the second part of our submission on communications, that we agree that often the community doesn't know what's happening. And that's really what I've already stated here, that council, because it is committed to having a role to foster the arts, including music, might actually follow up some of the suggestions that I have made in how communications could be furthered, particularly, and this is why I put out in my statement, the notion that a liaison with our only remaining community newspaper, which is the main way in which community events are relayed to the community, that could be fostered at a time when I know that, for example, where I live, up on Pacific Drive, no deliveries occur there because it's not considered part of the city. I'm also told that there are no deliveries in other parts of the city because paper boys, traditionally known, can't be found. This is also true in Levin. There is a real urgent need as far as music is concerned, but the other arts areas that council might get behind any way in which the communications could be progressed with the community. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And thank you, Guy, and thank you, Virginia, for coming in. Your submission will be received and considered with all of the other submissions by Council in due course. Thank you. Very much appreciated. Right, our next submitter is Rona Johnson. Welcome, Rona. I think you've been here right from the beginning, so you've seen how the traffic light system works and just the green button on the on your microphone there. And when you're ready, you've got 10 minutes. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm Rona, and new to this. I'm wishing to talk about a connected and safe community, and I've got one big issue regarding noise. Here's your brochure on environmental protection services, and I've had a big issue with a neighbour, problem with a neighbour, whereas his carport, or their carport, is level with my house, and the noise is very loud. He's a builder, and he was constantly making loud music and wiring while he was constructing numerous building projects with electric and power tools on a regular basis, and this has gone on for many years. And I went to the council and made numerous complaints. Even though he got excessive noise direction, he still continued, and therefore there was no resolution. So last year I wrote to the Mayor, Mr. Grant Smith, and that is dated the 13th of May 2020, of which I had no reply. So I wrote again on the 3rd of July, and then on the 14th of August 2020 I got a reply. Just quickly read out the letter that I wrote in May. It's basically under, so it's noise control, and its subject is unreasonable, unwanted disturbance of the peace in the Kelvin Grove area. I'm writing about a long-standing problem, a noise problem which I suffered for many years, in which a male neighbour works with power tools which generate what I consider to be excessive in volume, unreasonable, unwanted noise that continues on many occasions, in fact almost continuously, and which can occur at any time from morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, to 9:30 or more at night. Whenever this work is undertaken, is invariably accompanied by loud recorded music from an amplifier, play or a radio, and he sings as well. I believe that the Council's policy on noise control, as I'll show you here, gives a clear basis of what constitutes a nuisance, disturbance of the peace, comfort and convenience. I also applied for, supplied a number of pages from a logbook that I maintained in recent months. This was before and during COVID as well. Despite interventions undertaken by officers of the Noise Control Department of the Palmerston North City Council, this nuisance continued unabated. I met several times with the officers concerned, but the conclusion they come up is to presumably that there is nothing we can do. So under lockdown, the neighbour got an excessive noise direction on the 4th of April 2020. So there was no noise on the Sunday, but he resumed on the Monday, the 6th of April. So he was actually carrying on under the 72-hour excessive noise direction. I mean, I'm beside myself. What do? This guy just carries on. So he was basically doing building work 6 days in a row under lockdown, and I completed a logbook, and I also had a video sounds of his work. So another aspect of the problem is that whether this activity constitutes a commercial operation, which certainly seems the case, because loads of timber were delivered to the site, residential address, from time to time and processed there, presumably, and picked up later in the day. So under the unreasonable noise section of the noise control pamphlet, there are some procedures that could be considered. For example, Health and Safety and Occupational Safety and Employment Act 1992, Health Service of the Department of Labour. Since he was conducting basically a business from home in a residential area. And as a final comment, I would have to accept that I had never actually seen the product regarding all the noise, machinery, music and energy expanded in manufacturing in a small residential garret. It must be something to behold. So in the final, I look forward to hearing further ideas of resolving this impasse. So that was May. And I finally got a reply from the Mayor, Grant Smith. It says, thank you for your letter regarding your neighbour. Although your inquiry is an operational one, I have followed up with the head of Environmental Protection Services, Kerry Lee Probert. She has advised that surveys have been conducted in Peter Hall Drive and there have been some noise complaints upheld, but they were in the minority category. Consequently, we have been unable to substantiate your complaints. We understand Kerry Probert advised you to contact Colin or herself regarding the situation if it changes significantly or escalates. Otherwise, please continue to refer noise complaints to the contact centre in the usual way, noting that the half-hour waiver will no longer apply. So it comes to the fact that the guy just carried on regardless, even though he got a noise direction, and I was just suggesting there could be something better done for a more connected and safer community regarding someone conducting a business. And I didn't give him permission to conduct a business at home when it's so close to my living quarters. I just felt that I was let down by the council, and I'd done everything they said, but it wasn't, I wasn't really, I was listened to, but there's nothing they could do. I was sort of beside myself. So therefore my quality and peace and enjoyment of my own home was not. And I've read up, like if we're in the States, you can actually sue neighbours for unwanted noise. So I'm wanting a better system of reporting noise. I mean, it's not just building noise, it's party goers, boy races, barking dogs, loud music, people doing unruly things. I followed all the procedures, and I have to admit it has stopped, but I don't think it was a result of my letters and numerous complaints, because the couple have now got their grandson, but he still tinkers away from time to time doing metal things, but at least it's not power tools, so I'm just being honest there. So that was my main concern, was we want a better reporting system for all these noises, and to the council to uphold their for the residents who can have peace and quiet in their own home, and to be resolved a lot quicker than what I had. So I've actually got another issue that's just completely different, because time is going on, about saving the old post office. So, yeah, sorry, one subject to another. So the old post office, in my opinion, needs saving because it's a historical building of national significance. Formerly a post office, then a bar and nightclub, and in the late 2013 it closed down. In my opinion, it's a lovely building inside, or was, and worth saving. The owner should have an obligation to maintain and strengthen the building and follow through with his developments. I believe it was shops and whatever, for the betterment of citizens of Palmerston North. With millions of money have been spent to update the square to a modern standard, which is great. But to look at the high flyers at the moment, it's a disgrace. There needs to be some compromise between the owner, the council and interested parties to uplift the image and morale and just get on with doing something with it. It's been nearly 10 years and it's right in town. In my opinion, yeah, it needs to be saved. Like replace the tower. I think there's a bell somewhere. I know one bell went across to here in the middle. We'll reinstate or replace the original letterbox like they used to be. If there's option to partly demolish some part of it, if possible. You know, make the building a tourist attraction to attract people to Palmerston North. I'm with a Presbyterian church, and with various meetings and finance and years of working through things out, we're able to save the St Andrew's Church, and new renovations are happening sometime this year. So there's an example that a historical site can be saved. So in my opinion, I think it's possible to save the old post office and do it up for everybody of the benefit of Palmerston North. Is there any questions? Sorry. Well.
Thank you, Rona. That's you're out of time. So thank you very much for your submission. And just in respect of the noise control issue, could you just contact myself, Councillor Pat Hancock? You can get my details off the website. I chair the Safety Advisory Board, and I can probably just give you a little bit of advice just around that to make sure that that finally gets resolved.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you very much for your submission. It'll be considered with other submissions in due course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, our next submitter is Lynette Singleton. Welcome, Lynette.
Good evening, councillors. I've come with my daughter, Alana Singleton. So I wear many hats. I'm Lynette Singleton by night and by morning, and Lynette Hodges during the daytime, an academic at Massey University. I lecture in sport and exercise, mainly clinical exercise physiology. And so our main submission was from Alana's point of view in requesting better pools in Palmerston North, but not only a better pool in Palmerston North or a bigger pool in Palmerston North, we need better facilities for our community. So Ministry of Health, Ministry of Health guidelines state that we all need to be physically active. We're an ageing population. Here in Palmerston North, our median age is 33. So we're quite lucky that we've got a younger age group, although we've got quite a wide scope of age. So doing some research, there is 14% of the population is over 65, but yet there's still a good proportion of younger people who are 19.7% of the population is from 0 to 14. So we need to cater for both the young and the old. It was interesting listening to Trevor Shaler from Sport 102. There's many initiatives that maybe aren't going so well in Palmerston North, so not just the inadequate pool capacity, But I think sport needs to be addressed, particularly for girls in sport and for minority groups in sport. We know that, from my point of view, I've got 4 girls. Alana's my oldest daughter, and we've just started the netball season at the CET Arena on Saturday mornings, and we've played 3 matches at the CET Arena, and we have now 3 weeks without any facilities. We then go for another 3 weeks, so the girls are just building momentum, and then there's another 3 weeks where there's no facilities because the CET Arena is heavily booked. We also suffer a loss of pool facilities, so when a pool breaks down, there's not another pool that we can go to. So my daughter Alana, she swims for Icebreaker Aquatics, and when the pool breaks down, we can't just jump ship and go to the Freiburg pool, despite the fact that it's not at capacity. We've been told it's for public use only, not for club swimmers. So it's quite disappointing that actually there's a pool where there is some space in the mornings, but actually we're being told that we can't use the pool. But also, come the end of the year, Alana and other people will be looking to go to long course, and the facilities that we have at the Lido are inadequate. Generally, you'd be looking to train for long course October time, and the facilities at the Lido are far inadequate. We didn't manage to train in the Lido until January because there were heating issues and generally problematic issues. So there were 3 months of the year that we could actually use the 50-metre facilities. I don't particularly want to be travelling 2 hours to Martin, which is the nearest 50-metre pool. It's also if we had a better facility with courts and pools and maybe hydrotherapy for our older adults who have to go to the Star Centre at the hospital, then it would be an all-rounder, all-encompassing facility which would bring more money to the community. It would see better competitions, it would see regional success. It would also mean that different sporting bodies are not being hit for funds because we know that Icebreakers, they just wanted to take their team away to Div 2s. That's very expensive. They've just gone to Dunedin. Next weekend is secondary school nationals in Wellington. Then you've got North Islands in Auckland. So if there was some sort of facility in Palmerston North, it's actually a really good place to bring community populations, It's 2 hours to Wellington, 2 hours to Napier. We could be a good regional hub. Have you got anything to say?
Currently at Icebreaker Aquatics, we have maybe 8 to 10 people in a lane, and you would usually probably only want 5 as your maximum, as you go like 10 seconds apart, and that means that like the first person that goes is back before the last person gets to leave. So if you're going last in a lane, you don't really get much swim time. So we need bigger lane space or more lane space so that we have more swim time and better quality of swimming. Yeah.
Thanks.
Happy to take a question or two. Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your submission. You mentioned the pool at the Lido being broken down or not available. Yep. Is that the outdoor pool?
No, the outdoor and the indoor pool. So the indoor pool is not available on many occasions because the lane space is taken up from public swimming and other clubs' use. And then the outdoor pool was broken and malfunctioning at the start of the year. So the temperature for swimming, I'm pretty sure, was under 23 degrees. And you're looking at a pool temperature of 26.
But was that just a one-off, or is this something
No, this
that's
is regular. This is regular occurrences.
for both pools?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Chair. Just in regards to the national secondary school type of events that you'd have for age groups, what sort of numbers are competing at an event like that if we were in line to host it here for Palmerston North?
That's a really good question. You probably, Amy's probably better at answering this than me because she's been around the traps for a bit longer than me. Sorry to put you on the timeline.
It has 365 swimmers. That doesn't include spectators. That's just swimmers. Nationals, they've just opened up registration, so there's not a final number, but they usually go between around 400, 450 for swimmers. That doesn't include spectators.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Mann.
Thank you. Just wanted to follow up on you were saying that you can't swim in the mornings at Freiburg. Is that as a club or as an individual?
No, that's as a club. So for example, if the icebreaker pool were to break down, which it has on many occasions, and we've needed to go and swim at another pool at short notice, we've been told that the club can't pay for lane space, and we're not allowed to swim there.
Just follow up on that. So what sort of numbers are we talking about? How many swimmers?
We're talking about in the region of 10 swimmers.
10 swimmers. Okay.
In the mornings.
And is the facility full, do you know, or?
The facility is not full. I was a regular morning swimmer, and in the mornings there would be about 6 people swimming in the mornings.
Thank you.
Councillor Happer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks very much for coming in, both of you. You talked about women not being disadvantaged in sport, and I just was interested in that comment.
I just think we need to consider women in sport. They tend to drop out of sport for various different reasons, and we need to try and keep them in sport. So we need to do our best. So, for example, if you're building momentum, for example, in netball, and then all of a sudden you lose momentum because you can't get the facilities, then it advocates, well, actually, why am I doing this sport when basketball has its momentum and can seem to be consistent across the season, whereas other sports maybe that are more, I don't want to put female orientated, but it seems that actually some sports seem to get priority over others maybe.
Is that about our facilities, though?
Yep.
That's what you're talking
Yep.
about? Okay, thank you.
Time for just one last question. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you. Just wanted to inquire, we've heard from some other submitters around aquatic facilities around the need for sort of spectator space, especially from a parent point of view in terms of parent supervision, parent access to their children. I'm just wondering, given that you've got kids that are active in that space, if you might comment around the value of that.
Yeah, I think it would be really valuable to have a better space for spectating. Here in Palmerston North, we have the Freiburg. It gets very hot, and there's not much room for spectating. So unless you're timekeeping, there's not much room for seeing your kids swim. But not only that, I would like to see some facilities where the kids can do activities, but also as a parent, you can be doing an activity at the same time. I think that would be really worthwhile in the community.
Can I just also add that at the Manawatu secondary schools, it was very crowded, as in like there was almost nowhere to sit because there were that many swimmers. And so there was nowhere to sit, so we pretty much all had to stand, and the people that were watching you to see if you had any DQs, they couldn't really go down the side of the pool to check because there was very little space. So we need a bigger facility to house a lot more people.
Great, thank you both, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you very much for your submission. Very good, and that'll be considered alongside all the other submissions in due course. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Right, our next submitter is Amy Odom. Welcome, Amy. I think you've been watching patiently, so
Yes.
you'll know the system. Thank you.
I'll
Just when
do
you're
my
ready.
best. I just pushed the button here.
Indeed.
Oh, it's on. Okay. I'm coming to talk about the pool space in Palmerston North. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I know this is a topic we speak a lot about around the pool. The reason I wanted to speak to you today is that I wanted you to understand the impact of not having a purpose-driven pool facility in Palmerston North and how it impacts the life of a young athlete. Additionally, I'm a committee member of the Manawatu Water Polo Club, and I can speak to the challenges around the sport of water polo in Palmerston North. Just to give you some background, my son is 15 years old. He plays water polo for Palmerston North Boys High School and Manawatu Water Polo Club, and he swims for Icebreaker Aquatics. He's been swimming and playing water polo for over 4 years now. He's been in the New Zealand age group performance squad for swimming, and he plays water polo for the premier water polo squad for Palmerston North Boys High School, as well as playing for under 16s, under 18s, and the senior men's squad for Manawatu Water Polo. In a typical week, he spends about 20 to 22 hours a week training for swimming and playing water polo. He does most of his water polo training at Palmerston North Boys High School. In Palmerston North, there's no public deep water pool deep enough to play water polo. Most of his water polo trainings are completed in the deep end of the Boys High pool. Therefore, not having a deep water pool in Palmerston North makes it difficult to properly train and impossible to play a proper game of water polo in Palmerston North. Right now, tonight, my son is in Wellington for the evening to play 2 games of water polo. Due to the fact that there's no deep water pool in Palmerston North, he and his teammates travel to Wellington on most Thursdays to play an actual game of water polo. He leaves Palmerston North around 4 p.m. and usually does not get home until after 11 p.m. If he has homework, he does it on the way to Wellington. Just to give you some perspective, last Thursday he also went down to play. Last Sunday he spent the day in Wellington to play 2 games of water polo. He also gets up on Friday morning when he gets home and swim trains tomorrow, so he'll get up tomorrow and do it. In 2021, after counting up the calendar, he will have spent 26 days traveling to play water polo tournaments, which is obviously hard on him and certainly expensive for his family. Water polo is a growing sport in Palmerston North. However, without an investment in a proper pool, I'm not sure how long it will continue to grow. The high cost of travel for a water polo player living in Palmerston North can make it difficult for the player's family and consequently can affect the player's ability to progress in the sport. I'm going to speak just for a second about the Manawatu Water Polo Club. They currently have 121 members. 30 of them are women. They have a flip-a-ball team, an under-12 mixed team, an under-14 boys and girls team, an under-16 boys and girls team, an under-18 boys team, and a men's and recently started women's senior team. I'm going to switch hats and talk to him a little bit about swimming. Regarding swimming, Alex swims with the Icebreaker Aquatic Swim Club. They use the Palmerston North Boys High School pool, which is a short course pool for trainings. However, the club is at capacity and juggling lane space is certainly challenging. And I think they spoke to that a second ago. They do long course training over the summer at the Lido, leading into the National Age Group Swim Meet, which is held in April. However, there have been many challenges with the Lido long course pool because it's an outdoor pool. Bad weather and pool temperature has forced to cancel trainings, making it challenging to adequately train for long course meets. Additionally, Swimming New Zealand has changed the calendar this year and decided to bring regional long course meets forward to December. The problem with this is that our long course pool is the Lido, and it doesn't allow for us to train in the wintertime. So our swimmers who will be trying to swim in a regional meet in December will have a difficult time training in a long course pool. We have a lot of young, talented swimmers in Manawatu, and I fear without investment in the proper swimming facility that the sport of swimming potentially will lose them. In Palmerston North, we do not have a proper pool to hold a national swim meet because none of the facilities have the capacity for swimmers or spectators. There's also no electronic timing available in Palmerston North. It is, I will say as a parent, it's frustrating because for my son, he wants to swim in a good pool when he swims in swim meets, and we always have to travel out of town to swim at a good pool. So he feels like he can put his best foot forward when he goes to race. The closest adequate aquatic facility is in Wellington. It's the Wellington Regional Aquatic Center. And they have sort of, I guess, the best in class in the area as far as allowing the swimmers to do long course, short course. They can play water polo and several other aquatic sports. So again, to attend swim meets, he requires him to travel and the costs associated with it. In 2021, my son will have spent approximately 35 days traveling out of town to swim meets. Alex represents countless swimmers and water polo players that are out doing the best they can with the facilities they have available to them. While I know we're talking about solutions that will potentially be completed many years from now, I would like to be the voice to encourage you to start now. Palmerston North has an opportunity to continue to grow aquatic sports in Palmerston North and invest in these young athletes. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. Amy, do we have any questions? There's nothing coming up on the screen at the moment. No questions, so thank you very much for your submission, and that'll be considered by Council in due course. Thank you.
Hi, nice to meet you. We're actually perfect timing. We're just ready for you. I'm going to put you on speakerphone. And hopefully the councillors will be able to hear. Here you are, one moment.
Right, our next submitter is the New Zealand Memorial Museum Trust, Lakanoa, and it's the Right Honourable Sir Don McKinnon. Welcome, Sir Don. We're obviously going to have to navigate some technical issues here this evening, but you've got 10 minutes to make a submission. I'm sure you're fairly familiar with the process, and that includes questions from City Councillors. So when you're ready, please make your submission.
Hi, this is Don McKinnon. Am I coming through reasonably clear?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you very much, and I apologise for the kerfuffle earlier. Most of the time I'm on Zoom or Teams that works, and sometimes it doesn't work, and it's beyond me to question why it doesn't work. But thank you anyway for your time, all honourable councillors. This is quite a big ask, as you'd probably know, and I want to probably answer three pretty straightforward questions. Why are we doing this? Secondly, why in Lakanoa, and where have we got to today? The issue of why are we doing this, you'd all be aware of the many, many New Zealanders who for the last 100 years have been travelling to the Western Front, looking for the gravestones of their forebears from one side of France to the other side of Belgium. Needless to say, yes, you can find the 12,500 graves, you can find the 5 monuments, but you don't find a place where you can hear the New Zealand story or hear about the New Zealand story. Yes, you can go to Vilmy Ridge and go to the Canadian Museum, you can go to Villas Bretonneau and go to the Australian Museum. At Arras, of course, we were involved in that, but that museum's been built by the French themselves, so wherever you go, American Museum, South African Museum, Indian Museum, British Museum, there's no place where you will hear the New Zealand story told by New Zealanders. And this is very much what we really want to do. It should have been done in the 1920s when the other ones were done. It wasn't. But to me, if it has to be done, we should start, and we have started now. Why Lakanoa? Well, obviously, this is a town where the New Zealand Division, on its own, it is separated from the British Army, was succeeding tremendously at pushing the Axis powers further into the east. And the town of Lakanoa, even today, 102 years later, still is thanking the New Zealanders for what they did, liberating their town where not one civilian was killed. And to me, that recognition by a whole town full of people in that corner of France deserves more than just a plaque on the wall. To me, to build a museum come visitor centre there so that New Zealanders on their travels through the Western Front, and I'm sure it'll happen again, they can hear about the New Zealand story, why New Zealand was so successful in that part of the world. And where are we now? We have currently raised nearly 9 million out of a target of 15 million. I'm very happy with that state of play. We have a tax exempt status or tax rebate status from the New Zealand government, and you probably know that I've written to all local authorities throughout New Zealand and had some very good responses. I think we've about 250,000 has come in so far from local authorities, including two of your neighbours, Rangitiki and Tararua. So we're hopeful that despite all the demands that are on local authorities at the present time, you would be able to see yourselves clear to meet a small commitment over a 3-year period, maybe equal or more than what Tararua could do, and we would be very, very happy if you were able to do so. And then as time goes on, it'll be your children and grandchildren who, when they go and look at those gravestones on the Western Front, will be able to go to one place and hear the New Zealand story in a place where they still revere what New Zealand did for them. So thank you very much for the time you've given me. If I can answer any questions, I'd be happy to do so, but that's the current objective.
Thank you very much, Sir Don. We do have a question in the queue here, so this is Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Thanks, Sir Don. Can you hear me?
Not very well, I'm afraid.
Okay, I'll try and speak up. Is this not more the sort of project that we'd expect the government to fund rather than individual city councils?
No, look, I'm sorry, I just couldn't pick up what you were saying. I apologise.
Can you relay that, Sarah? Oh, yeah. Okay, I've got the phone in my hand now. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, very well now, yes.
Okay, good. Is this not the sort of problem, the sort of project that we would expect the government to fund rather than individual city councils?
The government should have done this in the 1920s. It refused to do so. It was asked to contribute to Menin Gate. It refused. It was asked to contribute to Messines. It refused. And I think people just said, we don't want any part of it. So, yes, and over the years there have been moves to do something. And I suppose I decided, getting on in years and having worked in government, if government isn't going to do something, let me start something. And I would be confident, and I think I could say to you, you're in a public arena there, if we can raise a few more million, I think the government will find it very hard not to wish to participate.
Okay. I mean, I have been to Le Quinois, and I do understand the context, I suppose, of your request. But I think I would find it very hard to ask ratepayers in Palmerston North to contribute to a project like this. I mean, what would you say to try and convince me?
Well, I'd say, not far from Palmerston North, you've got a fairly large military base. These are the people who are training to do the very things those soldiers were trained for over 100 years ago. So a linkage with the military is quite significant. And of course, in the broader region, with Linton Camp and Ohakia Base, you have got military around you of significance there. Military we tend to forget about until we actually need them, and then of course they are expected to go to places that they may not return from. I just want people to think a little bit about the fact that when those soldiers go overseas, most of their mothers think they will return. And when they don't return, I think they'd like to think they are not forgotten. And this is all about not forgetting those that have gone away and not returned, and have also done some exceptional things which we want younger New Zealanders to know about.
Okay, thank you. I'll just hand you back to hand the phone back to the administrator. Yes, sir.
Sorry, we've got one more question here from Councillor Barrett.
Hi, Sir Don. You've been passed on to Councillor Barrett here with a further question. Thank you for your submission and raising this matter for us. Look, you've alluded to about $250,000 already raised through local governments, including some of our neighbours near Palmerston North. Can you give us a sense of what sort of levels of funding Tararua and others have committed?
Look, the figure's not in front of me right now. We put out a challenge to all local authorities, I think it was a couple of years ago, the first round of this, and we were suggesting $1 per citizen over 3 years. What we have that's come in so far is the equivalent of from 10 cents per citizen over 3 years up to $1.20 per citizen over 3 years. So, I'm just saying there's the range of figures, which is pretty considerable, and it's probably easy just to throw a dart at the wall. But look, that is your challenge, and I can only put it in front of you and hope for my best.
Thanks, Sir Don. That gives us a sense of range. Much appreciated, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and thank you, Sir Don. That rounds up all of the questions there. Thank you very much for your submission, and that will be considered in due course by Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving it attention. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Great. A little challenge there, so we managed to get through that, which is great. Okay, so the next submitter is Michael. You got Michael here? And that's submission 670.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Hopefully I won't take up too much of your time. It's starting to get on, I realise that. I'm here just to talk briefly about the requirement for what I've called a multi-use aquatic centre in Palmerston North. I come from a background from the point of view of having 2 children that are competitive swimmers and water polo players. On the swimming side of things, there is a huge lack of lane space available in swimming pools in Palmerston North for training, which results in some unsuitable hours to a point, late nights for children, with swimming sessions not finishing until 7:30 at night, and time to get home, and so on and so forth. And also, at these swimming pools, the lanes are, there's a lot of juggling to go on, try and fit kids in, and often the lanes are, I would suggest, have more swimmers in than ideal, therefore making it harder for the coaches and to actually train the kids properly. We have no facility suitable to hold a regional swim meet, let alone a national one. These are the types of events which can bring people into the region, and Palmerston North does sort of specialise in these and other sports with lots of with its central location and lots of hosting of sports events. Of course, on the other side of that, it means that there's lots of travel away and lots of money actually going out of the region for all those local participants. On the water polo side of things, there is no pool in the Greater Manawatu deep enough for water polo. Obviously, is a requirement of the sport that you can't be standing on the bottom of the pool. So training is a massive challenge. Like an earlier submitter said, all the water polo training is done at the Palmerston North Boys High School swimming pool, which has one end of the pool is deep, which only makes up about a third of the pool. So I would liken it to having rugby training all in the 22. It makes a bit of a challenge. It also means that there was nowhere suitable to play games of water polo. Even we can't have a local schools competition. We can't have teams coming from outside. There's nowhere to play tournaments either. So once again, it means we've got a lot of people transiting out of the region. Player numbers in Manawatu water polo have significantly grown over the last 2 years, but I don't know how sustainable that is because this growth, because the playing opportunities are so limited because of the lack of facilities. So there's not really much incentive for people to stick with the sport, even if they do like it, because it does require a huge commitment of time and money and so on and so forth when you have to travel out of the region all the time. Any Manawatu club teams and secondary school teams all play in the Wellington competitions, which is, like I was saying, is a huge travel, time and money commitment from parents. It's seemingly never ending. If we look around the city, there's great facilities for just about all sorts of other sports. We've got now potentially well, not potentially, but the best speedway facility in the country. Rugby, you name it, there's all those sorts of facilities. We've got 3 international standard hockey turfs, yet we haven't got anywhere to have a swim meet that's, like I say, even a regional one, let alone a national one. It sort of seems to me to be quite the one thing that's really lacking. We need a 50-metre indoor deep swimming pool. That's just what we need. And as an example, like I've got a daughter in Year 9 and a son in Year 11 in secondary school in Palmerston North. So they swim and they play water polo. So this morning they had to be up at 5 a.m. to go to swim training. Now one's in the Hutt Valley playing water polo and the other one's playing at Wellington Regional Aquatic Centre in Kilburnie. They won't get home till 11 o'clock at night, at least tonight, and then they're theoretically meant to train again tomorrow and then go to school. That's a hell of a thing to put on kids, and it's just sport. You say what you will, but I think it's pretty universally agreed that sport's a good thing, and that's the sports they've chosen, and that's what they love. But we just can't do it here. And one more brief example. My daughter's she's just been in Dunedin she had a week off school. She was in Dunedin for the National Division 2 swim meet. And then in the upcoming school holidays, she's going to Rotorua for 4 days for a water polo tournament. And then following on from that, she's in Auckland for 5 days for a swim meet. At the same time, my son's going to Christchurch to play water polo, and then he's going to Auckland for National Secondary School swimming as well. It's just, these are all things that we can't do here and we can't have here because we just don't have the facilities. And that's me.
Thank you, Michael. Councillors, you got any questions? There's nothing in there. Oh, sorry, Councillor Johnson. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Michael. I mean, we have been hearing quite a lot of the same message over the course of the hearings.
I'm sure you have.
Do you have any thoughts as to a price tag for this pool?
No, that's beyond my thoughts at the moment. I mean, the first stage is to get, a feasibility study done and work out what it is going to cost. That's going to be the first step of anything. So, I mean, I'm sure you can, like anything in life, the price tag can be, range from minimal to infinite, can't it? Depending on where you want to go. In terms of level of, it's going to be minimal. Level of facility,
We have got the feasibility study in Year 1, I believe. Is it Year 1? Or Year 2? Year 2. So, are you? I mean, obviously, even after a feasibility, there's still going to be time after that. Would you like to comment on urgency from your point of view?
Look, my children aren't going to benefit from it in their childhood. I appreciate that, but like everything in life, if you don't start, you never get finished, do you? So, if you've got a feasibility study you'll have the results of in 2 years, I'd be, and that's all good, then, and you decide to go ahead with it, well then I guess 2 to 3 years later you'd be looking to kick it into gear.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah, Michael, look, I've probably got one question, and it's come up through some of the other submissions where they've talked about the water polo versus lane swimming training and variable depth pools.
Yeah.
Can you explain the technicality of how that's achieved?
I'm as much as I'd like to be, I'm not an expert on pool construction, but obviously Wellington Regional Aquatic Centre is very deep at one end and shallow at the other end, so as far as I'm aware it's fixed, but Hutt Valley Huia Pool, where my daughter's playing tonight, has a movable floor, which simply raises and lowers to accommodate whatever's required. Yeah, but the hydraulics of it, I can't inform you of. I'm sorry. There's smarter people than me that might in their field of expertise.
No, great, thanks. I was just a little bit curious, and because I don't know the technical aspects of it either, so I was just trying to. Some more information.
Sorry, I can't help you.
No, that's
really.
great. Look, thank you, Michael, for your submission, and that'll be heard by the council in due course. And thanks very much for coming in and giving us your time.
No problem. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Right, our next submitter is Huanui Community Committee, Tracy Mowat. That's submission number 554. And you're familiar with the traffic light system and microphones, 10 minutes, and just start when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, my name's Greg Barrett. I'm the current chair for the Huanui Community Committee, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Before we crack on with our submission, I just want to also say a big thank you, and the fact that we really appreciate the effort that the council's put in to assist with the upgrades of the corners of Kelvin Grove Road and the Ashurst Bunnythorpe Road and Watershed Road, Ashurst Bunnythorpe Road as well. Muchly appreciated. It's made that stretch of road a hell of a lot safer than what it was in the past, so thank you for that. The area that we want to talk about is getting the funding that's been potentially pushed back to year 4 and 6 of the plan, brought back into the 1 to 3 years for the upgrading of the road of Kelvin Grove Road, predominantly the 5 dips. And we wanted to speak about that in regards to the safety aspects of that portion of road. The growth in the area has been quite substantial. I believe there's 58 new allotments that are placed in the Hartwell area, that subdivision that's been created out there, and through the 5 dips there's at least another 6 to 9 properties that have been sold in the last little while that are in that area for new development. The things which we have noticed being community members out of town but still passing backwards and forwards between Palmerston North and home, is that road's just getting more and more use, and it's not getting any wider, it's not getting any safer, and that's a major concern for us when you consider some of the cyclists that are going through that area, but also the condition of the road is deteriorating worse and worse. So we'd just like to bring that to council's attention. And the whole point of us being here is that we'd really like to see that some more time and effort put into that area and the funding to be corrected so that that upgrade can go ahead. Trace?
Yeah, so I guess the key, with Greg's raised the growth and the current state of the road. Notice in the Palmerston North City Council plan that got put out, it's scheduled for year 4 to 6, and we're really strongly advocating that that's brought forward to years 1 to 3. We don't think that we know that the road's had repairs in the past while, and we know that there's funding that allows for repair of potholes, etc. But our biggest concern with the state of the road at the moment is its width and also the dips, as it's called the 5 dips in the council plan. That width, with the kind of vehicles that are using it, we consider to be extremely unsafe. We get a higher volume of cars using it, but also we get anything from milk tankers. It's a school bus route that takes children into town And one of my friends, her kids sit on the bus and they sit on the far left-hand side and they see, and they've got this game that they play to see who can go over the bumps the highest. If they pass each other, there's very little wriggle room to get a safe passage. So it's really the width of the road, and we don't see general repairs and maintenance over the next 3 years solving that. We see the plan that you've got in year 4, being that widening of the road, being really crucial to making that a safe road for an area that's constantly growing in our region. I think they're the main points. But I would like to say, just like Greg said, thank you for those intersection upgrades. They've made turning safe, turning right into Watershed Road in particular for me. You don't have your heart in your hand. It's fantastic. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you. Questions, Councillor Barrett.
Sorry, can I just one more point there. Prior to moving out to Huanui, my address was on Kelvin Grove Road on the 5 Dips. The last place on the left-hand side was a place that I'd rented. During my 2-year tenancy in that house, we lost power 6 times due to car accidents, taking out power poles by the Vintage Car Club. So to me, that tells me that we've either got the worst drivers in New Zealand or a really bad piece of road.
Or both.
Possibly.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Greg. So we've got your message, I think, around timing. Just wanted to ask if you had any views at this stage around sort of quality of like what you actually want to see there. Do you just want to leave it to the engineers and whatever's done is done?
We're obviously keen to see what they'd come up with. I think everyone, if you've ever driven that piece of road, you know it needs to be wider. All right, it's my biggest scare is when I'm driving through the 5 Dips as a cyclist, because we've got this, be considerate, keep a metre, all this sort of stuff. There is no way in hell that you can maintain a 1 metre distance from a cyclist if there's a vehicle coming the other way.
I think that we'd obviously leave it to the engineers, but the title of the proposed upgrade is basically what we want, which is widening and vertical realignment of the 5 Dips. That will significantly change the road. Maintenance and repairs won't do that.
No.
Great, thanks for those comments, Mr. Chair.
Great. Look, thank you very much for your submission. There's no more questions, and your submission will be submitted with all the others and considered in due course by Council. So thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
And that brings our last submitter for this evening, the Massey University Foundation, Mitch Murdoch, submission number 424.
Yes, 4 of us. Thank you. Hello, how are you? Likewise. All right. And are we lucky last for you, or?
You are indeed.
Right. Get the interpretive dance ready, boys. We're good to go.
Okay, so just before you start, you've been waiting out there, so perhaps are you familiar with the traffic light system? You've got 10 minutes to talk. Green gives you, I think, 7 minutes, a couple of minutes on orange, and then when it goes red, you've got 1 minute to finish. And if you want to have questions, then I would suggest that you try and sort of keep it to perhaps the orange light, and then you can get some questions from the city councillors.
Fabulous. Thank you.
So when you're ready, 10 minutes.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Ina iwi na mana e ni rā rangatira mai, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou. My name is Mitch Murdoch. I'm Director of the Massey University Foundation, and I'm here with my colleagues today, my 2 learned colleagues. So I've got Dr. Danny Donoghue, Dr. Vaughan Simmons, and my colleague from the Foundation, Jamie Horton. And we are here today to talk to you a little bit about Botanical Garden out at Massey. And I'm going to hand mainly over to my academic peers, who are much more clever than I am, to talk about the Botanic Garden. But I did just want to do about 1 minute on the Massey Foundation. Some of you are probably aware of the Foundation and its work. And the Massey Foundation has worked with the City Council before. We've worked on the Wild Base project, and most recently on the refectory project, which will be completed at the end of July and occupied in August with a public opening in November, and we're very excited by that project. I'm sure that the council's going to enjoy coming out there and having some meetings. But this project, I think, is one of the most significant ones that we've looked at, and I think it is one of the most significant ones for the city and for the university. And I think it's going to be one that offers an awful lot. The Botanic Garden is really the brainchild of Dr. Simmons sitting to my right, so I'm going to hand over to him and force him to talk about it a little bit more. He's been working on this project for a few years now, and the foundation is really the fundraising arm of that. And because we only have a few minutes, I'm going to hand over to Vaughan, and then I'll briefly hand over to Danny at the end, who's going to hopefully squeeze a couple of minutes on Dairy Farm 1, which is his baby, because I think that's also quite significant that we want to include that in the Botanic Garden as we move forward. So I think really you've got the important stuff, so I'll move on to you.
That's a lot of pressure.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So for anyone who's been to a Botanic Garden, you'll have some idea about what it is, or at least some idea about what a Botanic Garden can be. The reality is the Botanic Gardens can be lots of different shapes and sizes and even have different roles. At its core, a Botanic Garden is a permanent collection of plants and information, most often established in a lovely sort of park-like setting. But a Botanic Garden can be so much more than this. It can be a destination, an experience that caters to a wide diversity of community interests. From those who want a serene place to go for a stroll, to those looking for an engaging, eye-opening experience to share with family and friends. And really, a Botanic Garden should be a setting where we use plants to tell stories. These might be stories about how we rely on plants for building materials, clothing, food, coffee, which would be nice about now, stories about different ecosystems and biodiversity, the intimate stories of New Zealand icons like Kofi and Kauri. They can be stories about climate change and conservation, stories about sustainable agriculture, stories about the interplay between nature and art, stories about the history of life on Earth. The sky's the limit, really, and we think there are some fascinating and compelling stories to tell right here. So where do we want to tell these stories? Where do we want to engage with the community and city visitors through this new Botanic Garden? Well, right at the back door of the city, really. Massey's senior leadership has set aside a corridor of roughly 100 acres that runs along Turitea Stream from the Manawatu River and the river pathway up through the Massey campus and out the back to Old West Road. And so this bit of Turitea Stream and a new adjoining 4.5-kilometer pathway will serve as the spine of the Botanic Garden. Peeling away from that spine path will be a system of trails that lead to individual gardens, each with their own focus and their own individual stories to tell. In recent history, many Botanic Gardens have started to evolve into important research settings. Sometimes the research is tucked away behind the scenes, and sometimes it's right out front for visitors to engage with. With this project, we have the chance to embed research into the very fabric of the new gardens. One example of this involves the restoration of the bit of Turitea Stream that runs through the future garden. So Massey's been working with PNCC and Horizons and Green Corridors to restore the banks of the Turitea back to native bush. This project has the potential to improve water quality, stabilize stream banks, and provide new habitat for wildlife. Beyond this, though, it means we'll have a natural laboratory embedded within the gardens where we can test and monitor restoration efforts. This space is currently utilized in undergraduate teaching and postgraduate projects at Massey, but it's easy to imagine how enticing it could be for primary and secondary schools throughout the region. Over time, we can set up monitoring stations, webcams, we can run workshops, we can have school kids come out and collect data for their own class projects. The opportunities here are boundless. So, we briefly touched on just a few of the many things that a Botanic Garden can be and can provide. A quiet, reflective space, an engaging educational space, a community space. This Botanic Garden can and should be all of these things and more. It will be the sort of multifaceted space that enriches the community and attracts visitors to Palmy. We have this fantastic opportunity to develop and grow a garden at the back door of our city and to leave this amazing legacy for generations to come. It's our hope that we can do this together.
Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. My name's Danny. I'm Deputy Head of School of Agriculture and Environment, and my position at Massey is funded by the dairy industry.
Just if you press the button, just in front of you.
There we go. Oh, even better. Unfortunately, I can hear myself now. So I've had a lot to do with Dairy One. Dairy One runs from the Tiratea stream down to and under the Fitzherbert Bridge. And we've had a project there for the last 7 years, looking at reducing nitrate leaching from farms and improving animal welfare outcomes. And we've got a project that we're building with MPI, support of MPI, now looking at comparing conventional and regenerative agriculture. So the idea of Dairy One, of course, it's now bisected by the new pathway from that lovely new bridge. And we get about 5,000 visitors a year to the dairy farms, farmers, international visitors, and students and school students from all over the place. So this ties in quite nicely with the idea of the Botanic Garden, because we're wanting to have signage and have a whole heap of things going on at the farm, we intend to, running back along the pathway back to the Fitzherbert Bridge, around educating people around what we're trying to do, and co-learning, of course, because that's the whole idea of research. We don't have all the answers. We're working with industry and the community together. Anything else?
No, I think that covers it really well, actually. And I think the idea of having the dairy farm inside the Botanic Garden for this region, I think, is quite significant as well, because we have an awful lot of dairy farmers. So I think it's a great way to showcase it to the people that walk through the gardens along those walkways. And I think it's a great opportunity for us. I think we'll leave it at that, so we actually have some time for some questions. Are there any?
Yes, there is. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mitch, for presenting this to us, and the team. Really good to hear about this. If you could give us, Mitch, a little bit of a sense of, I guess, what the forward prospects for funding might be around this. I think from where we, well, at least from where I sit, the difference between putting up $300,000 for something that may just sit on a shelf versus something that may actually get investment is quite a meaningful piece of information.
Yes. Well, I think there's two things. One is that with that money, we will hopefully get a set of plans out of it that we can take up to inspire other funders and alumni and stakeholders, but we will also complete the first loop track. So we would get some return on that investment straight away. I believe that we're going to get, it's very interesting actually, our work in the foundation, we get an awful lot of bequests and gifts from people, and we had one last year, which I use as an example, a lady that passed away in Palmerston North and left us $700,000 for horticultural scholarships. Her name was Nolene Olsen. I think if she'd had the Botanic Garden, it would have attracted those. We actually have quite a lot. We always need more scholarships for students, but we do have quite a lot of scholarships. I think that funding could have quite easily gone into research in a garden and developing of gardens. Botanic gardens across New Zealand and around the world attract an awful lot of funding and bequests. So I think we're going to, if we have it and we give it a name, I think we will get an awful lot of bequests. Now, I can never guarantee that to you. But I also think that this is a very appealing project to funding agencies, like, for instance, lotteries, Environment and Heritage Committee, and I think they'll be one of the first places we visit for potentially a systematics garden. But the issue we have with starting with funding is getting those plans together, because everybody says, show me what it's going to look like. And we ran a feasibility study. We went out to alumni and funders, and it's the first thing everybody said. And of course, Massey would love to fund plans, but as you know, like everybody else, particularly with COVID, our focus has to be on our students and our research and our teaching. So I think, the difficulty is for us how to start, but I think the funding is out there from funding agencies. I've met with Central Energy Trust yesterday, who responded obviously very positively and said, please put a bid in, and we will if we get down the line. So again, I can never guarantee, but I think our probability is very high.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Look, thank you very much for your submission. That brings us to the end of your time, and your submission will be considered by Council in due course. Thank you very much for coming in, and thank you very much for your contributions to the city.
Ramihi, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Good evening.
And that brings us to the end of session 6. So I just want to thank all submitters who have come in and had face-to-face conversations with Council today. That's a very important part of the consultation process. I just want to thank elected members and also City Council staff for their involvement this evening. And session 7 is tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m, and we will adjourn till then.